The existential question of the streamer. Do you want to start the stream? Right.
Yes.
And I can trim that off. Right. Allegedly, we are live.
You're live.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Allegedly, we are live. So, welcome to Tales from a Thursday. Little bit slightly different format. So I am Drutcup, which is not different, but I am not in command of this stream. Running the content of this stream will be Fishy, as he leads us through session 0 of the RPG Wildsea. What we're going to be doing is every now and then we are going to be doing not every week, but probably every fortnightly basis, we'll be, instead of playing a solo adventure game or RPG, we'll be playing a tabletop RPG. And this is session 0, so we're getting the lines and veils and basic character creation, basic concept of the game out and sorted. So let me introduce the runners and riders today. You're hearing me twice. Why are you hearing me twice?
It's because I am watching on stream and I'm a dumb.
Oh, right. You're trying to confuse me. So we have...
Yes, I'm evil.
Yes. We have Fishy, who is our GM, the Firefly.
Hello.
Yes, you do have to say hello. I'm just proving that everyone has a voice. Moliere.
Yeah, no, I have a voice.
Yes, my camera appears to be frozen as far as I can tell, but that's par for the course today.
Yeah, frankly, we have your voice. That's good enough. Alexia.
Hi, I exist only on voice. Today I'm a spectral spirit. Hi.
Exactly, yes. We will also, fingers crossed, under normal circumstances, be having Chrono Magistrate and Jasnitz playing, but because life and because prior commitments, they are not here today. So they are vodding and phoning in their options. So we'll work around them. But that's absolutely fine.
I think we can probably run the game fine so long as at least 3 out of the 5 are available for any given session.
Oh, God.
It is just sort of slightly important that one of the 3 be Drat.
Okay. It is kind of important, yes. Otherwise, I have to give somebody else permission to stream on my channel. So, I will introduce the Wildsea. And I'm not quite sure why I said it like that, but I feel like I want to be leaning in like this for sinister purposes. So, to give you an idea of what we're looking at, because Wildsea is odd. It is not your standard setting. And that's a good thing. Some 300 years ago, the empires of the world were toppled by a wave of fast-growing greenery, a tide of rampant growth spilling from the west. This event, the Verdancy, gave rise to the world you'll explore as you play, a titanic expanse of rustling waves and sturdy bows known as the Wildsea. Now chainsaw-driven ships cut their way across dense treetop waves, their engines powered by oil fruit, rope golems, honey, and pride. Their crews are a motley, humanity's weathered descendants rubbing shoulders with cactoid gunslingers, animated wrecks, and silk-clothed spider colonies. Humanesque slugs with driftwood bones and other stranger things. Each has a role and a reason to be out on the Wildsea, and it's their stories, your stories, that this game is designed to tell. No, I don't normally use the disturbing tag. I've read some of the background to this. We're going with the disturbing tag.
The Wildsea can certainly be
a disturbing place.
But it doesn't have to be, but it can be. There is certainly the potential in this.
Okay, so I am going to hand over to Fish. What I will first point out, though, is the rules for this can be had for pay what you want, starting from 0. And you can find them. Oh, come on, Techie.
Or not.
Ever just have that? No,
I'm not
Techie's just
seeing
gone.
Techie in chat.
You're not seeing Techie in chat, and I know why, and I'm an idiot.
But I'll tell you what, for now, I'll just quickly post that link.
Please do.
And while you sort that out.
Yeah, this may not be a quick fix. It's Drut's an idiot fix.
Is it this one?
So
it's using the wrong bot.
Hello.
The Wild Words rules, which is the system that Felix Isaacs came up with for Wildsea, is available for free, and that is, as freebies go, it's pretty impressive. It's a 155-page document containing the basics of the Wildsea. You can run Wildsea and play Wildsea using just that document. However, the full game, should you buy that, is 368 pages. So there's still quite a lot missing, even in that 150-page free version. But it is completely playable. So it's an excellent thing where if you're not sure about it, but you want to give it a try, you can grab that and do exactly that. Try it out, see what you think of it. So what is the Wildsea? That's given us a little bit of an introduction already, but let's go a little bit more into what is this game. For starters, I'm going to put the focus firmly on me now, because I like to use slightly different terminology than most people. The Wildsea is a role-playing game, but I'm old school. I've been playing since the 1983 Red Box, what's affectionately referred to as BECME D&D. And I have certain ideas about what a role-playing game is, and a lot of modern games don't necessarily quite fit with what that is. So I tend to expand slightly on categories. I would define Wildsea as a collaborative storytelling game with role-playing elements. So, like any other role-playing game, each player has a character which is their avatar within the game world, and they make decisions for what that character is doing. Unlike a traditional role-playing game, Wildsea is designed to tell its stories in a more cooperative form. So rather than the GM coming up with a scenario and then running people through that scenario, it's entirely player-driven. As Firefly, the reason that the GM is called Firefly in this game is because of the myth of fireflies guiding boats. And that's what the GM is supposed to do in this game, is to guide the players and guide the story rather than control the story. So I will be presenting you with books, and I will be interpreting what is happening based on what you're doing, but the motive force for the game comes from the players. The setting, as we know, because Drutt has just told us, is 300 years after the Wildsea, the great apocalyptic event that bathed the entire world in trees. One of the things I love about the way Wildsea is put together and the way this setting is the setting information is both evocative and yet minimal. For example, there's no real indication as to what the world was before the Wildsea. It could be our world. It could be a standard fantasy world. It literally could be whatever you want. So one of the themes, we'll get onto campaign themes in a little bit, but one of the possible themes is discovering the past. And what that past actually is not something that the game already presents us with to be discovered by the players, but something that the players would be building by discovering it in the game. I really like that. Got a rough timeline, however. 300 years ago, the Wildsea happened. Those with foresight, it says, moved to higher ground. They are, as far as they can tell, the only survivors. 299 years ago, pocketfuls of these survivors are hit by their first high-altitude winter. Entire cultures are lost to biting cold, lack of water, and virulent new diseases.
Good.
Over the next 20 years or so, more and more die, few thrive, There's an abundance of food and wood, but fresh water is scarce. And Krezerin-contaminated rainwater burns. I'll get onto Krezerin in a moment as well. Then over the next 40-odd years, a new generation is born, people who've never known anything but this. So it's the generations that are born after the verdant sea, who've never known the pre-verdant world, who start to really thrive more within this setting. They change. Krezerin has a mutative effect, which sort of leeches into everything from the trees. So humanity in this post-verdancy world is not the same as humanity before the verdancy at all. 240 years ago, Tarak Tar works with her grandfather, a sailor of the now buried seas, to build a ship capable of crossing the treetops. There's a nice little sidebar about that event, which I will read to you in a moment. But effectively what they did is they took an old hull from pre-verdancy that had been, by the root quakes, had been sort of brought up to the surface, the top of the trees, and they built a boat to sail the trees with it. An engine fueled with honey and rotting fruit, a rudimentary chainsaw running the height of the bow to cut the path, and against all the odds they succeed. Over the next 200 plus years, this technology is advanced. Thousands of ships are built, and people begin to reforge society after the verdancy on top of the trees, connected by these ships that sail the waves, that sail the leaves between various settlements, until we get to today. The idea of saltwater sea or land larger than a mesa seem absurd to most. Fairy tales. Blood, salvage, and exploration drive the economy. The world is different, but it thrives once more. That's the rough timeline for where we are starting.
Okay.
The details, however, are very much left to each individual group to work out as they play. So this campaign, what is this campaign going to be? And that's the interesting question, because as Firefly, I don't know yet. I have my ideas as to what I'd like to see in it, but it's, as I said, a player-driven game. So as part of this session 0, we'll be working out roughly what the campaign is actually going to be.
Cool.
And the first step with that is going to be the campaign themes. Any role-playing game, any fiction, has a number of themes, usually several. Very rarely is there just one theme to anything. It's quite difficult actually to write something and exclude all the other themes, because they creep in by accident, even if you don't want them to. But I've listed 6 themes which I think seem appropriate or common for something like Wildsea. And what I'm doing, I'm going to run through those themes now, and then I want each of the players, you can do this verbally, or you can think on it and put it into Discord, or you can hand it over on Discord straight away, whatever. I want them to rate these themes from 1 to 6 in terms of how important they think that theme, they want that theme to be in the campaign.
Okay.
So the themes are, first off, exploration. Exploration is a big deal in a setting like this, because even though the ships have been sailing the Wildsea now for over 200 years, still so little is known about the world. So going out there and simply seeing what is there is one very valid option, and is certainly a theme that is going to apply in pretty much every game of Wildsea. It's just how much focus is that theme. So that's the first theme, exploration. Second, already mentioned, uncovering the past. Most people now know nothing of the pre-verdant world, and there are even mysteries from the post-verdant world. It's been 300 years, so there are places that have arisen, thrived temporarily, and then vanished again, particularly on what are called spits. Spits are not solid. They are ground at the top of the trees that can be colonized, but they're not like mountaintops. They are literally areas of ground that have been brought up to the top by the movement of the trees and can go back down again at any moment.
Okay.
So although spits are commonly colonized, there's a lot of settlements on spits. They're always in danger of something happening and them losing that. So there are places that have disappeared in the time.
It's
So
shades,
there's a lot of paths to be uncovered.
shades of buying beachfront property in Cornwall.
Yes, very
Or
much
the-
shades of buying
Yeah.
property in Cornwall.
Or indeed,
Or
these
building
days.
on a-
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on, Molly.
Oh, sorry. Just anywhere these days.
Yeah.
With. Sorry.
Yes, you could.
I
It's
was just
far
going to
too
say, or
easy.
building on a fault line.
Oh yes.
People do. It's prime real estate on fault lines, but there's always that possibility your house is going to disappear.
Mhm.
So the same thing exists in the Wildsea, and it is on spits and reefs, in fact.
Okay.
The next theme that I think is appropriate to the game is that of personal growth. Your characters are almost certainly going to be young wild sailors setting out into the world. Not necessarily on their first journey, certainly, but you're going to be in charge of a ship between you for the first time. You may well have sailed on other ships before getting there, or you may not. That's up to you. We'll find out when we get to character creation. But seeing what's out there in the world, personal growth is obviously related to exploration because it's still about discovering things. It's less about discovering what's over the next, what's past the next tall shank, and more about discovering what's in you and what the journey will bring out.
And if combat goes wrong, we'll see what's in you, because it'll be all
Yeah.
over the deck.
The next theme I have listed is the ties that bind, which is perhaps a slightly pretentious way of phrasing it, but that's about how the journey will forge connections, both between the crew and also between members of the crew and NPCs, other parts of the world. The ties that will bind you not only to each other, but also to those on the various ports that you will visit as sailors.
Ah.
That's a common theme with really any role-playing game that is not about kill the monsters and take the treasure is going to have this theme. And this is a very narrative game, so I think it's a theme that is particularly appropriate for this one. Personal gain, I've got down next. You are on a ship. You may be salvagers, you may be traders, you could be pirates. Whatever you want to do with your ship, we'll work that out later. And so how important a theme in the game is going to be your quest for personal gain. And finally, what I have dubbed for the good of all, which is obviously how much is it important to the themes of this game, the idea that you are saving people, that you're going out and doing what is good for other people. It's kind of the flip side of personal gain, really. You doing what you're doing either to benefit yourself or to benefit others, and that's those last two themes. I believe I listed those themes on the Discord, so they should be there for people to see.
Yes.
And although I'm using a voting system, I'm using a priority system, and asking people to give me a number, to just rank them from 1 to 6, with 6 being the most important, and I think that's 6 being the most important. Yeah, not most important,
I
at
thought you
least
said
important.
1 being the most important.
Now
I
I'm
think
going to have to check Discord and see which way around that is.
Yeah, I think Chrono did it 6 as best.
Excuse
Most
me one
important.
I just need to do some swapping.
I know.
Sorry. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say phrasing. Because well, that too. Yeah. But yeah, yeah, it's
yeah, I
less of
actually
a.
didn't specify. I just said rate these from 1 to 6, not due to
Oh,
getting
okay.
any numbers. I neglected entirely to explain how I wanted that rating to go, whether it was
Okay.
1 being high or 6 being high. In my
Yeah.
head, it was always 1 being high. Sorry, 1 being
Okay.
low. Because
So-
my theory was that I would
Yeah.
simply add the numbers together, and the highest number would be the most important.
Awesome.
priority. But
okay, so think of it like
I
a
will double
Likert
check with
scale.
Bruno
Yeah.
and make sure
Yeah.
that I'm incorporating his the right way around, and I'll just
Yeah.
reverse the numbers if it be.
Uh,
Sorry, I just accidentally closed all of the
Okay.
windows, so now I can't see anybody. That's better. You're back.
that needs to be a 2. And that needs to be a... Oh, that needs to be a 1.
So
Yeah, that looks about right.
what I started saying there was, although I'm using this number system, an awful lot of this game is about discussion, really. In the description in the game rules of how the game plays, they refer to the conversation, which is just their way of saying the fact that these games are all about talking. Ultimately, you talk to one another, and every now and then you break out of that to roll dice. So
That's actually fairly standard for our games, though, isn't it?
occasionally you roll dice in some of our games, now and then, not that often, but sometimes. So the conversation obviously extends beyond just the I walk to the front of the ship. It also includes, in something like this, which is very much about collaborative world building, it includes the discussion of the world. And for starters, do we want to discuss those themes and how we feel they should be prioritized? Or do we just want to come up with our answers and see what it comes up with?
I've just bunged my answers into Discord.
Okay.
So I see.
I shall add mine as well then. If I can remember which way my mouse goes.
I shall move Discord to my third monitor, because otherwise it's hiding behind people.
I want a third monitor. I really must
I'm
hook
so glad
my
to have my
TV.
third monitor back.
I really must hook my TV up to my computer so I can have that as a third monitor.
Well, counting
TVs work well as a third monitor.
Yeah.
Counting my laptop screen, I now have 3, but ever since I added all of those, I've had nothing but problems with every
It is more
laptop,
of a
every
strain on the
version.
system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. They're not very good monitors, Sage, for the most part. It's
definitely.
quantity over quality. I've seen them. Most of them have recently been under my mum's stairs.
Yeah, I
need to upgrade 2 out of my 3 monitors.
Yeah.
This one here is lovely. This is my touchscreen, which is why you'll occasionally see me strangely reaching towards the camera when I'm actually using the touchscreen instead of the net.
Yeah.
The other 2 are ancient. I mean, they are at least LCD, not CRT, but they're nevertheless they're 4:3. They're not widescreen monitors. They're old things that could do with being replaced at some point.
Yeah.
When I can afford it.
But I love second hand anyway. Right.
Yes, actually, these are both second-hand monitors.
Yeah.
Yeah, my second standalone is second-hand as well, but exactly.
Yeah, I mean the only reason I stopped using a second-hand monitor is it died.
If you're thinking about your priorities, people, while you're thinking about those themes, I'm just going to run through a few core concepts mainly for the chat. This is going back to the setting stuff. So, core concepts of this setting: the treetops are a sea. Though made up of branches and leaves rather than water, the treetops still act as a traditional sea in many ways. There are waves formed by the natural contours of the canopy, ports built onto what little solid ground remains, and a vast number of ships, their hulls supported by branches. While it's possible to move through the canopy without a vessel of some kind, to do so for any length of time is a huge risk. Secondly, land is scarce and valuable. Mountaintops and large chunks of earth or debris caught up in the canopy act as islands and archipelagos, fiercely guarded by their inhabitants. The settlements built on these outcroppings of remaining land are constructed with safety more in mind than comfort, leading to ramshackle appearances and multiple layers of defense against the ever-threatening waves. I'm getting some interesting noise there. Is that at my end, or is that coming from somebody's PC?
I don't know. I was not muted, but I didn't do. I did. Could it have sounded like a chair moving, perhaps? Because I
No.
did twist in my chair.
There's a sort of a hum, which has now died back down. Yes, that sounds like someone being microwaved. That is not a bad description, Sage.
Ah,
It has died right down now, so
Yeah.
I wonder if it's down to perhaps somebody's auto gain control, turning the mic up
Could
if
well
they're
be.
not speaking.
Oh, okay, then
Yes.
it's probably my own vent. I
Yeah.
was
So
wondering.
Yeah,
that
it
So
is.
I am booping my microphone until I need to speak.
This is
Yeah,
reason to contribute. It's because your auto gain control will not have
Yep.
a turn and go, I'm supposed to be listening to something.
mhm.
Give me input.
A third core concept: plant growth is rampant. The
Okay.
plants of the sea grow at a dramatically accelerated pace, but only when connected to the iron roots, which are the huge mile-high trees that act as the foundation for the canopy you say. A cut branch will stay inert, but another one will have grown in its place within hours. Though the upper limits of the sea may have settled, the topography is constantly changing, and every now and then an unexpected spurt of growth claims a ship or colony. Very importantly, open flames are forbidden. Almost all cultures have prohibitions against the use of fire while at sea, and for good reasons. Flame burns hot and long on Wildsea wood and spreads at a terrifying pace. If a fire does break out, even the most bitter enemies will likely put their differences aside to fight it together. In fact, in the north, just the north, because there's very little detail in the setting, it's left quite open to each group to do what they want with it. But in the north, there is still an area of the Wildsea which is burning and cannot be put out. And efforts are constantly striving just to keep it from spreading. But this is the result of an old war which nearly destroyed the entire planet, because with the whole planet being one big wood and with fire spreading so quickly, it could have wiped out everybody. And even now, hundreds of years later, it's still burning.
Okay. I just had a couple of unsettling questions just to confuse your carefully defined structure come to mind, so I have posted those in Discord.
Cool. Yeah, we will get to that when we get to the unsettling questions later on. Thank you
Okay.
very much for that.
That's all right.
So, next core concept: Crezerin corrupts on contact. Secreted by some of the Wildsea's more dangerous vegetation, Crezerin is a potent toxin. Think of it essentially as caustic mutative tree sap, to all intents and purposes. Brief contact does little more than sear skin, but long-term exposure warps both body and mind in terrifying ways. This, along with the threat of predators and falling, keeps most sailors on their ships during long voyages. For those familiar with Warhammer, Crezerin can be thought of as effectively warpstone infused tree sap in many ways.
That's endearing.
It's interesting stuff. It seems to be responsible for everything that's going on in terms of the Wildsea and the dangers of the new world. Economy in this post-verdant world is barter-based. With much of the pre-verdant world's technology and resources lost in the murky depths around the roots, salvage and recycling are particularly important. The economy is based on barter, usually of food or materials, but sometimes acts of service. Bounty boards are a common fixture in most settlements, allowing locals to farm out tasks and have others solve problems they can't deal with themselves. It is one of the ways that you'll have hooks introduced to you.
Yeah.
And indeed, one of the ways that you yourself can introduce hooks when you come up with them is to put them onto a bounty board when you're in port.
Now, that's not something that's usually encouraged, is players making use of notice board situations. But no, that's actually, I'm quite happy with that idea.
Yeah, I mean, you can do this in two ways. You can do it in character. You yourself. There will be times that there are things that your crew needs that you aren't capable of doing. So you can post on notice boards yourself and let an NPC come to you about it. Yeah. You can also, as players, make suggestions of hooks that you would like to put onto a notice board. And I am old-fashioned enough of a GM that I will maintain the right to a veto. But nevertheless, unless there is some reason why I should or need to veto this idea, then you are welcome to populate the bounty boards, even if it's just as background stuff that you yourself aren't going to follow up on. You are welcome to populate bounty boards.
Cool.
Finally, it's a weird world. The Wildsea setting is designed to be low magic, high weirdness. It's a world of unusual creatures, woken spirits, and unbelievable abilities, but they're mostly tangibly connected to the waves themselves. There's very little in the way of wands and spellbooks or magical study. The practice of twisting the world in mysterious ways is referred to as archanautics, literally a delving into the unknown and uncanny.
I misheard that as Arkham Nautics, and my brain just went to whole places.
Archanautics, yes, indeed.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
I will take a little time now to add in your votes on the campaign themes.
Okay.
And while I'm doing that, the next thing that I've got in my list of stuff to cover is safety tools.
Yep.
Now, because I'm an old school gamer, I'm not big into safety tools. I think safety tools are a great idea, and they have existed as long as tabletop role-playing games have. Some of the old school gamers will tell you otherwise. You do have some people who come up with we never needed safety tools in our day. We had safety tools in our day. We always had safety tools. What we didn't have is formalized safety tools.
Yeah.
So there's two that we're going to be using in this game. The first is a tool within Fantasygrams Unity, and it's a tool called Halt, written by Die Hard Gaming. It's not part of Fantasygrams. It's a free extension that you can add into it, and that gives you two little icons at the top of the chat box. One of them is a stop sign. Well, they're both stop signs. One of them is a yellow triangular sign with slow written on it. It's a slow sign, not a stop sign. And the other is an actual stop sign. It's a red octagon, I think it is, with a hand, raised hand. And there's a couple of ways we can use these. How they're intended to work is that you use the slow sign if things are starting to get a little bit iffy and you just want to bring people's awareness the idea that you want to maybe slow down or ease up on what's going on, that it's starting to go in a direction that you don't like, so that we can steer away from it. And the actual stop sign is, okay, no, stop this now, please. Hopefully, the slow means you never have to get to that point.
Yeah.
The second way this can be used, the second way that this can be used is, I implemented an idea that sometimes you can get a player who isn't being able to make themselves heard. This is particularly important with online gaming, particularly if you've got some players who are loud and some players who are quiet. Those quiet players can easily get lost. So my thinking is that if you've got Halt there, you can hit the stop button as a way of raising your hand. Because when I see that stop button coming up, I'm going to activate that now. I don't know whether you'll be able to see it on that screen because the VTT window is very small on the layout. But
should be able to. Yes, it's at the bottom left.
When I see that stop sign come up, if there hasn't been a slow before it, I'm not immediately going to think, oh my God, I've just triggered something. I might instead think, okay, somebody wants to bring something to my attention. Somebody wants to bring something to our attention. So at that point, I'll stop and I'll find out what the issue is. And if it is actually a safety tool issue, then obviously they can let me know by private message or whatever, and I can deal with it. And if it is just that somebody isn't being able to make themselves heard and has something to contribute, then I can shut everybody up and let them do that. Again, they can let me know that by private message. So I find it useful for that as well as the core safety tool function. The third way that we're going to use it for this is as we go through the consent in gaming checklist from Monty Cook Games' Consent in Gaming book, which is a book all about the use of safety tools and keeping players safe. What I was saying about how safety tools always existed in role-playing games, they just weren't formalized, is what we're going to be using is we're going to be using the lines and veils safety tool. A veil is a subject, basically, that it exists in the world. We're okay with it existing in the world, but we don't want to see it directly in our game. So it's there in the background. We're aware that it's happening out there in the world, but we aren't going to interact with it directly. A line is a hard no. This does not exist. Maybe it does exist in the world, but we are never going to have any indication of that, and we're all going to pretend it doesn't. And those have always existed in role-playing games. We just didn't have a word for them in the early days when we started. We just did that because most people who played role-playing games in those days, you tended to play with your friends. You had a group of friends got together and play, and you knew each other well enough to know, oh, well, I better not put such and such a thing into the game because Bob doesn't like that. And it could be to do with, mostly it's to do with personal experiences. It could be that one of the players has a phobia, so you don't bring in the subject of that phobia. It might be something to do with personal loss, so you steer clear of the circumstances surrounding that personal loss. One way or another, because you're playing with your friends and you don't want to hurt your friends, you steer clear of the things that you know they're going to have a problem with. Later on, it became more important to formalize that because playing online like this, you can be playing with complete strangers. You may never have met them before. You may not know them. You could be playing in your friendly local game store, again, with complete strangers, or you could be playing at conventions. I think convention games really is where safety tools came in.
Yeah.
So they're not something new. They're not something different. They're not criticizing the way you play in any way, shape, or form. They're just acknowledging the fact that you may not know the people around the table well enough to be able to function without them. They provide a safety net. I like to think that all of my players in any game that I'm running can come to me and let me know what issues that they may have, what things they want to avoid, where they have a problem, where they want things changing. But sometimes that isn't the case, and the safety tools will provide a mechanism where that isn't the case. So as we go through the checklist, what we're going to do is we're going to use HALT to provide anonymity for that, because sometimes people might have an issue with something but not want to actually say they've got an issue with it. They might, ridiculous though it is, you should never feel that way. Some people might feel bad or embarrassed or like they're going to disrupt the game for other people if they put their hand up and say, I don't want that in the game, please. So anonymity is the only way that you can get past that. And this provides an excellent way of doing it, because the way the checklist works is everything is listed, everything in the checklist is rated as either green, yellow, or red. Red is a hard line, yellow is a veil, green is a we're fine with this, carry on with it. By coincidence or not, HALT has a yellow and a red symbol in it. And this, I neglected to mention when I explained the tool, that this tool is anonymous. It doesn't attach your username when you trigger it. So it pops up with the stop sign or the slow sign. It doesn't say who said it, just that someone has a concern. So this means, for going through this checklist with anonymity, if you're using Fantasy Grounds and you're using HALT, or if you're using a similar tool in any other virtual tabletop, because similar things exist in the other tabletops, this is just my tabletop and tool of choice, you can use that to allow for an anonymous reporting. So, for example, looking at the consent form, the first thing we have is a list of horror items, and indeed the category itself counts. We can have, you can put your hand up and say, no, I want to draw a veil on horror, and all things horrific will not feature directly in this game. And as we run through them, so we get to horror, if somebody has a problem with horror, they can just trigger the slow sign and say, okay, so that's veiled. I then know to tick the veil on the checklist on that. It doesn't matter to me who is requesting that. I don't care about any individual person's veils and lines. I care about whether the veils and lines are there, because if it's veiled for one person, it's veiled for everybody, and the same goes on. More so for lines. If it's a line for one person, it's a line for the whole group. I don't care who's doing it. All that matters is that somebody is. So we can just go through and anonymously fill that in if people are more comfortable that way. So that's how we're going to handle the RPG consent. I am going to suggest that Trout, if you are okay with it, you give us a little bit of discussion about. I've kind of just done it. I was going to hand over to you to talk about safety tools, but I've kind of just done it. So if there's anything you want to add, since this is your channel, then please do so, and then we will get on with going through them and voting on them. But I just obviously first want to get these theme elements.
Okay, you carry on with that.
Copied into my little
The only things I will say is I will reinforce that safety tools are not a bad thing. Whether they are conceptual or whether you actually physically go through questionnaires is a matter for each table, but at some point you're going to end up using them if you're not utterly uncaring about your group. And it certainly shouldn't be considered if someone puts a red card up about a subject, well, that's it, we're not playing anymore. And also, if somebody has an issue and flags are yellow or red, it doesn't mean that they're weak, it doesn't mean that they're weird, and it doesn't mean that they're trying to ruin your game. That's something that I think some people who are a little bit leery of safety tools may think that they consider that there's a possibility for people to sabotage their games or for people to just be, quote, snowflakey, unquote. That's not what they're for, and I've never encountered anyone who used it like that. It is simply people working within their own comfort zones and not necessarily edging into harm. My personal motto has always been scared, not scarred, and I can run some pretty... Yeah, exactly, Alexia. Those people are the issues. I have run some fairly gnarly horror while also exercising safety tools and giving people access to those safety tools. You can do an awful lot. You just need to know where not to step.
Yeah.
That cover it?
So if we are ready, then leave us run through this checklist. We may buzz through quite quickly on parts of it because it's quite a long checklist, and there are some elements that I'm not going to say I will not give you the option on, but there are some things that I am going to skip over. For example, the horror category. It is there as a category. As I said, it can be veiled, lined or veiled as a category, but no, it can't. And I have good reason for saying that, and that is that there are elements within that category that are not unique to horror. And if you just block the whole category, you're blocking things that appear in many other forms of fiction as well. So that category in particular, I think, should be actually gone through on an individual basis.
Okay, yeah, line by line on that. That's
first thing, we already have a veil on bugs in this category. So unless somebody wants that to be wants a line on that, then we can move on past that. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to write these into the chat in Fantasy Grounds as I go through them, because that way I can be sure where any response that we get, what it refers to. Okay. So if nobody is giving us an issue with bugs, I can put the next one in, which is blood. If anybody wants to throw up a line or a veil on that, red for the line, yellow for the veil. Nothing's appearing in Fantasy Grounds at the moment, so unless I hear otherwise before I finish typing, I'm going to move on to demons.
Okay. Anyone monitoring this chat is going to be confused as hell. Fish is just frozen. I think
yes.
Fish, I think you need to reconnect to your hotspot.
As far as eyeballs, I am in favor of them being in the world, preferably seated within their skulls.
That's better. I have found that.
A veil on eye trauma, then.
Yes.
Same.
I think this is when it says eyeballs, I think we are talking about trauma
Just
here,
checking.
because
Okay.
just the existence of
Yeah.
eyeballs seems a bit
Because yes,
silly.
It's
But
okay.
then
No
we don't
eyes
have
are allowed in this
We'll all be
place.
wearing blindfolds for the
Yes.
entire game.
Yeah.
yes, we're
So no, I think we can
echolocating.
assume that is actually referring to eye trauma, and we already have a veil on that one.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Next thing we already
Right.
have a veil on, which would the next thing on we also have a veil on, which actually would slightly scupper some of the Druts games getting this response because it's gore.
Mhm.
I think everyone here just goes, yep.
Well,
We played Druts horror. It's fine.
mhm.
No, it's
Well,
if
it's
anyone
reasonable
does have
gore.
yeah. Yeah, we know that
So
you're not
we've
going to
got-
go to Takeshi Miike.
Yeah,
on this.
we've got a veil on gore, so we know gory things happen in the
Yeah.
world, but this is effectively, this equates to a request that I not give you wonderfully gruesome details of every time something bad
Yeah.
happens to somebody in the game,
That's fair.
which I have actually been known to do in some games. Narrative combat, I'm a great believer in narrative combat, and that does sometimes include wound descriptions, but yeah, just I'll keep them toned down.
I have been known
So,
to
next-
describe which body parts exactly you're finding strewn across
Yeah.
the floor. So yeah, that's fair.
So the next thing is harm to animals.
I would like a veil, please. Assuming that these are, well, if they are hostile animals who are attacking us or so on, then I'm more flexible. But
Harm to
companion
neutral.
animals,
Yeah, companion
yeah,
and neutral.
neutral or friend, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, I'm fine with that. I've got that logged as a veil.
Thank you.
And we can follow that up with. I've got to remember actually to swap back to the right window before I hit enter. Next one is harm to children. Now that one we have already got as a line. That's
Thank
not
you.
going to be happening. So there is no need. I've included it because we're running through the list, but it's already there as a hard line with that. That's not
Okay.
going to be a thing that happens.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, so next we move on to rats.
Yeah,
I know some
rats
people
are
do have a problem with rats. Personally, I adore
True.
rats.
I
They're
love rats.
brilliant pets.
Yes.
But obviously fancy rats, not just wild
Yes.
things from the sewer.
Oh, well, wild things from the sewer. Firstly, sounds like a
That's a supplement where they
1960s.
came from. Clearly.
Yes.
I thought
Yes,
it was
it could well be.
or the sequel song to "Wild Thing You Make My Heart Sing." But
I like that idea.
Yeah. Mind you, did you?
So I think we're probably safe on that.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
now thinking of Wildwood, which is locally where they have a barn with a perspex wall, in which live their collection of wild brown rats.
Oh, yeah.
It's gorgeous. There's hundreds of little buggers.
I'm having issues with my camera. I'm just going to
You
try
are.
muting it and unmuting it
Okay.
and see if that fixes it, because I don't know why I'm having issues with my camera, except that my camera has been known to do that.
Okay.
yes.
So yeah, that seems to have fixed it. So let me know, anybody, if you spot an issue with my camera freezing up and flooding
no,
down
that's
again,
fine.
let me know.
That's
Mute
better.
and unmute it. Okay, now the next one we have a veil on, which is spiders.
Yay.
Unless somebody wants to upgrade that to a line. There we go. So
I'm-
this is the reason why, when we get to character creation, we will be skipping over the Telecray, which is one of the origins, one of the bloodlines rather, in this game. And I will mention the Telecray. I will tell us what the Telecray is when we get there, but we won't have them in the game as as player characters.
Yeah.
That is.
We've already established that the Telecray are sorry. We've already established before the session 0 that the Telecray are veiled. So they exist in the world. We're not writing them out of our game, but they won't exist. It won't have direct contact with them. The most you will get is maybe a reference to a Telecray crew member on another ship, but you won't have to interact with that crew member, that kind of thing.
Cool.
We then have 3 spaces under horror for custom things to be written in. things that the creators of the game, of the checklist, may not have thought of. The creators of the checklist, by the way, it's Shanna Germain, and I forget now who the other creator is.
I think primarily it was Jermaine.
Yeah,
Can
I
I
mean,
suggest,
it was her project very much.
because it's not a problem for me, but it might be for other people.
Mhm.
It could technically come under gore, but I think it's its own thing. Burn details, flesh burn details, wound,
Mhm.
Okay, so
death
do we
by
think
fire.
that needs? We've already got persons on fire.
Right. Okay.
As a veil, it's in, rather than under horror, it's in under mental and physical health.
Okay.
It could,
Yep. No
could
worries.
go in either category, but we've already got it in that
Okay.
category. So
Okay.
are we okay with leaving that then until we get
Yeah,
there?
that's fine by me.
Because that's veiled already.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, as I said,
that
it's
is
not a problem for me,
specifically-
but that was just one that occurred to me for horror.
That
Yeah.
is specifically, to use the the movie term, that is specifically for body burns rather than the aftermath. So
Right.
do we want a veil on burn damage, or
Not on my
are we
account. It was
making
simply a
it
topic I was
burn?
wondering about whether
Yeah.
anybody would want to.
Okay, and just out of interest, obviously my primary focus here is on drawing lines and veils for the crew,
Mhm.
for the players. But on the other hand, if there are people in chat who are regulars in chat, likely to actually be there for episodes, who have something that they absolutely do not want to see, negotiate with Drut over it. Obviously, it's her channel, but for me as a GM, I'm okay with taking the lines and veils a little bit further.
Yeah.
So if we're done with horror, we are now moving on to the romance category. Now, the romance category is one that I don't particularly see a problem with applying a line or veil to the entire category. There are, because it's not as essential to anything else. If you're playing with, for example, a group of 12-year-old boys, there's a very good chance that maybe they might want no romance. They don't want sloppy kissing in their game.
You didn't say this was
back,
a kissing book.
Kissing book, absolutely. I was just going to go
Princess Bride.
exactly that. Yeah, Princess Bride.
There's a Princess Bride quote for every occasion.
So what we have is, it's actually a relationships category.
Okay.
And that then breaks down, it's got two subcategories, each of which has a number of things underneath it. So the first subcategory under relationships is romance. I think I should continue the policy that I've been doing, actually write these into
please.
chat, just for, so we've got a record, an archival record.
Yeah.
Relations?
Relations.
Yes, I should have said relationships, not relations. I was moving on to sex there, obviously.
Hey, yes.
Yes. Either, yeah,
Okay, so
I
yeah,
wasn't sure whether to go with sex or with relatives, extended family.
Yeah,
I'd like to
you're
veil
not
on both
combining
of those.
them and
Family's
going
always
sex
embarrassing,
with your
isn't it?
relatives. No, that's not.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know if anybody noticed it, but that's one on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy counter there. I don't think we've incremented the Monty Python counter yet.
No, we haven't.
You know that in my head, both of those counters exist in any role-playing game situation.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so assuming that nobody is going to... I'm going to say that I find this section of the checklist slightly odd.
Okay.
Because rather than, well, it doesn't seem to work like the rest of the checklist. It's kind of almost more as this is like a menu. So under romance, for example, we then have fade to black.
Phrasing.
Now,
I was monologuing. I can
Ordering from the other
unaudit
menu.
actually because like it makes a lot of sense for me for this section to be here. Not because like I am in green on all of these. I don't care per usual.
I don't have a problem with the section. I just don't think it's necessarily been handled as well as it could.
No,
be.
it's like it makes sense for all of it to like be more detailed because basically you can be okay with everything except for like when you have like somebody really into like romancing an NPC, and you can just find that particular aspect uncomfortable, or
Yeah.
you just don't want to see your friends detail how
Again,
they're having hot sweaty sex with each other, which you
yeah.
know it's kind of like I can understand why like it can be okay between like a PC and an NPC,
Mm.
to be fade to black, to be explicit, to be
Yeah.
whatever, it's fine. But you can just draw a line at the line at
Yeah.
basically having two of your grade school buddies or whatever you're playing it with, you know, uh
Yeah.
whatever you're playing
As
with,
Yeah.
just
someone who was once forced to flirt with a potential boyfriend in front of their current boyfriend,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
something that stayed with me for a long old time.
The James Bond role-playing game.
Yes, thank you for
Yes.
that. Yeah. Everybody found it hysterical except you.
The subsections of
I
Fade to
felt
Black
it.
explicit between PCs and NPCs and between PCs. Now, up to a point, I can see how these work. So, do we have a line or a veil on the romance between PCs and NPCs, or indeed a romance between PCs? That seems to be how the rest of the list is working. It's where we get to Fade to Black.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, Fade to Black is an option for what you do if it's been veiled.
Yeah.
It's not something
Yeah.
you would veil. And
Yeah.
my sound.
it's like you can veil it, as in
Sorry about
you can know that you have a romance between a PC or an NPC,
That's
for
how my
example,
headset.
and you don't address like the romance. It's just there, and you can just address that as a veil, for example, and then you can just have the fade to black for everything. Like, can you please just not detail the aforementioned hot sweaty sex, please?
Yeah.
And like in any case, just stop,
I'm
please.
not sure which option it will
Be
come
tasteful.
under, Fish, but I think we can all go with pan away to a roaring fire.
Yeah, you see, now to me, that is what Fade to Black
Yeah.
should be. So I'm not
Mhm.
sure why that is listed as a thing that you would line or veil.
Yeah.
I mean, effectively, what we've got here is the option to not allow the GM to fade to black.
Okay.
That seems weird
Yeah,
to me.
Let's
pretty much.
that's odd. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's basically the option to just please can you not treat this? Just don't.
Nobody's going to
It's
be making endurance
oh,
checks to
and
see how long
also
the activities
uh
last.
Oh, it's been
also
known. It's been
an
known.
extra for this, it's also like for fade to black and explicit, it's also between like NPCs.
Mm.
So it can be both like PCs and NPCs, which is like what's treated separately, because again, the whole friends flirting with each other thing,
Mm-hmm.
but also like the part with between the NPCs, because in case somebody really doesn't want to hear their DM going about what their NPCs are doing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
etc.,
Can
etc., etc.
can we agree
So
that we
I
can
will
skip
say
over?
now.
Oh, sorry.
No, go
Sorry,
ahead,
I
Molly.
was going to say now that we've got a veil already on explicit romance, on sex between PCs and NPCs, and on sex between PCs. So effectively, we've got a veil on sex, and we've got a veil on explicit romance. So, do we need to put a veil or a line in on any of the other options?
What are the
So,
other options? Run over
I
them.
say for each of romance and sex, it's exactly
Right,
the same
okay.
for each of them. For each of them, it is fade to black, explicit between PCs and NPCs, and between PCs.
I think veil on explicit.
We've got a veil. Well, we've got a veil. Sorry, I missed. I explained veils. I forgot the line. We have a veil on explicit romance and on sex between PCs and NPCs and between PCs. We've got a line on explicit sex.
Okay, no, that's fair.
That's where we are to start with. So if
Yeah.
anybody wants to put anything else in, we will do that. Otherwise, I'm just going to pretty much skip over this whole section and move on to social and cultural issues.
Would people be
Yes.
okay with mild flirting with NPCs, for example?
Oh, I would be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just feeling out the borders, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
just thinking in terms of the fact that we've got pretty high scores on both personal growth and the ties that bind in our themes. Ruling out romance doesn't gel with those high theme scores, because both in terms of personal growth and on ties that bind, those are areas where not just romantic relationships overall, but romance is obviously going to fall into those categories. So I do feel that ruling those out would seem a little bit odd, given the themes that we're using. But at the same time, nobody's going to be forced into anything. And certainly I'm not going to turn the whole thing into just me trying to fan write Mills and Boon novels at you once I do a game. That's not going to happen.
Well, that's a disappointment.
We can keep anything like that mechanical potentially. More
Roll dice
I mean,
to seduce.
There are games where, when I say I'm just going to use small G games after the big G games. A big G game is when I'm talking about something like the Wildsea, Dungeons and Dragons. That's a game. Small C games where I'm talking about a group playing. Small C, small G. A group playing one of those games. There are games out there that do go mechanical on this. It's not at all an uncommon thing. Unfortunately, the jokes that you see on YouTube about, okay, can I roll to seduce the tavern wench? Yeah, that happens. That is a thing in an awful lot of games. But not in the ones I'm playing.
No, I've always been very fond of the idea that NPCs can have their own ideas on the situation and they don't care how high your charisma is.
I also, now this is a me personal thing as a GM. I've always felt this way. I have never seen the need to distinguish, particularly between PCs and NPCs, unless you absolutely have to. So the idea that, a seduction roll doesn't affect a PC, but it does affect an NPC.
Please don't say infect.
Sorry, in all.
Yeah.
If you want your seduction rolls to be able to work on NPCs, then they're going to work on you too.
Yeah.
You have to make that decision. All or nothing.
NPCs are not there to be your sex dolls.
True.
Or your flirt targets.
Well, okay, you can flirt at them, but they can respond angrily or walk away or
they're not your real doll.
Like people. Because they are people.
They are people.
An NPC in a game, it is too easy, particularly for new players. It is too easy to think of NPCs like NPCs in computer games as not being important and not being real.
Yeah.
Within the setting, there is no difference to your player character between a PC and an NPC. They can't see. There isn't some sort of magic sign on all the player characters that says they're the player character. Treat them as more important.
Yeah.
You should be judging everybody on the in-game indications.
You treat everyone
like
their
people. Role playing.
Yeah.
Treat everyone like their people.
Example, the romance example, of course, Witcher. We had an in-game romance there. It was not explicit. It was important in a relationship sense, but it was not, hot, sweaty, on camera anything. But you knew it was an ongoing situation, and because the NPC responded as a player, as a person would. It wasn't somebody targeted the local tavern wench, didn't even bother knowing their name, and just went, well, okay, can I seduce? Right, yes, I've rolled it. And they had to go along with it.
Going back to my early D&D, my early AD&D, anyway, I had a character in an AD&D first edition game who the GM, we went back to, he was a barbarian, and we went back to his tribe. And during various things that went on there, where he gained some extra abilities and sort of rose within the tribe and so forth. And as part of that, the GM presented me with what was essentially his childhood sweetheart, and they became a couple. And she then adventured with the party, and there was actually a whole big magical power thing where he had power, but she controlled the power. So it was quite a nice way of limiting what I could do. I could do awesome things, but only if my girlfriend said I could, essentially, and the girlfriend was controlled by the GM.
Oh, I like
So
that.
he had a right of veto on my use of these daily abilities, these powerful daily abilities. It was quite a neat way of handling things. But all of the romance side of that was effectively veiled.
Yeah.
It was a feature that, yes, okay, these two are a couple. No doubt they are doing coupley type things, not talking about just sex, just coupley type things. But none of it ever happened on camera, so to speak.
Yeah.
She was just a member of the party, and none of that ever was important to be carried on.
Where are those
who
two?
she was.
Oh, they're off stargazing somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, we never even did that. It wasn't even that far. It was so off camera that there could have just been two characters. That relationship was never important. Didn't even kidnap her.
Okay.
And I really appreciate this sort of approach, because it's like, you can incorporate these elements and also like add in a veil at the same time for like people who are probably, there are those, for example, that are uncomfortable with, like, they might as well even line it because they just don't want to see any sort of romance in their escapism for whatever their reasons,
Also,
and if you're playing with somebody who's maybe going through, their own nonsense going on, at that point, and maybe it's not nonsense, maybe it's like very sense going on at that point, it's like they could just go, can you please just don't, please do a solid.
And of course,
that actually brings me to a point that I neglected to make about this this whole checklist.
It's a living document, isn't it?
Is that this is a living document. This is not fixed. If somebody finds something during the game that they didn't realize was going to be a problem for them, but it now becomes a problem, it's added to they can have it added to the checklist, added to the form.
Two things.
It's not a case of, oh no, you should have told us in advance.
Your camera needs to be paused and unpaused. And yes, somebody, for example, going through a bad breakup doesn't necessarily want romance featuring at all temporarily. It might not be an ongoing situation, but at that point, you know what? They don't need to even think about people coupling up. And I said coupling
things
up.
Things can be added, things can be removed from the list as required.
Yeah. That's all right.
So I think we're ready to move on to social and cultural issues, because we do have quite a lot to get through today.
Okay, sorry.
And my sound's gone again.
Oh.
Okay.
Somebody say something so I know.
Okay. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Da, da, da.
Da, 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 da. Okay, that's started.
Okay, so I am back, but I think I'm going to have to, after this stream, I think I'm going to have to dig out my other headset so that I've got a backup headset, because I don't know. I think this is a software issue, that it's losing my headset rather than a hardware issue, but
having a hardwire would seem to be sensible for games.
That's the problem that I'm having at the moment, is it's periodically just dropping my my headset.
Okay.
So I will tell you now, we have got a veil on homophobia and racism, which is the next two categories to be covered. Unless anybody wants to up them to a line, then I think we're probably safe to move past
this shit happens in the world.
Yeah, I'm okay with there being bastards, but I just don't want it explicit.
Same. Yes, the same on my Witcher. It exists in the world, but I've danced around slightly on how upfront it is.
I am going to skip. I'm going to skip real world religion, because that's simply never. I can tell you now that's never going to feature in the campaign. I will have religions, post-verdancy religions that I've made up, but real-world religions will not have made it into this world, even if this is our world, which we don't know if it is at the moment.
Because so many people
So we can skip. we could skip straight past that. And the next thing is sexism, which we already have a veil on, unless somebody wants to add it to a line. But I think a veil seems more appropriate. The odds are good that it does exist out there, but we won't be having to deal with it because it's veiled. Now, we then have space for some specific cultural issues, and we have got, at the moment, we have got a veil on ableism.
Cool.
And we have got a hard line on slavery. So, I mean, that doesn't get any further. There's nothing, you're not allowed to downgrade it, so there's nothing really to be said about that one. So there we go. That's the social and cultural issues dealt with, which means we are moving on to mental and physical health.
Okay.
Again, here we've got some veils and lines already in place. So as we run through these, I'll give you the opportunity to upgrade as appropriate. First off, we have got a veil on cancer, and we have got a veil on claustrophobia.
Thank you.
Okay.
So unless anybody wants to up them to a line, that brings us to freezing to death, which currently we do not have anything on at all. Does anybody wish to veil or line that one?
No. Apparently we're all perfectly happy with people turning into ice cubes.
We're all absolutely fine with hypothermia.
Okay, as sentences go.
We then have a veil on gaslighting. So again, we're on the okay. Yes, it happens in the world, but we don't need to see it. Thank you. And we have got a hard line on genocide.
Okay.
Nothing at the moment on heat stroke. If anyone has a problem with heat stroke, then now's the time.
Would genocide include references to lost cultures, or would it be the act?
I'm going to say no, for the simple reason that a culture can be lost for other reasons. Than
that's what I'm thinking.
Genocide.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Just wanted to try and clarify that one.
Yeah,
I think it's important that we have a rating on that one, and I'm cool with it being a line. This is the kind of setting where genocide would actually be pretty easy, because the Wildsea has a lot of isolated communities. You could easily have a culture or a bloodline that is unique to a small area could easily be wiped out by the simple expedient of attacking that one location. It's the only place that it's found in a relatively small number. So I think it's a good thing that we have got that. It needs to be either veiled or lined, probably, unless everyone's cool with it. We've got a line in it.
So this is for hostile action. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
We then get on to natural disasters, things like earthquakes and forest fires. I hope nobody's going to have an issue with that, because obviously the Wildsea, that's a fairly big feature. The whole setting spawns from a natural disaster. So you could be not directly dealing with it.
Fish is
fish. Yeah.
But from my point of view as the Firefly, it would be nice to give you the opportunity for doing things like rescue missions, which natural disasters obviously are great for.
Yes. Yeah.
Next, we get to paralysis and or physical restraint.
I think.
So how are we doing on that one? Are we okay with that, or do we want to veil or draw a line on that one?
I think my only issue would be locked-in syndrome, and nothing. I would prefer not to have to deal directly with being aware but not being able to move or react, but being tied or otherwise immobilized, but in a clearly temporary sort of situation that could be overcome theoretically. I think the locked in syndrome sort of thing is a
Well,
little
we could
distressing.
add that we could put that into the list of where we've got space to add our own options.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can put
Okay.
lock down there.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
That's a personal. I mean,
Are we
I would be okay with it being in game, but no, I
are
can
we
see what you mean.
railing it, or are we absolutely lining that one?
Veil, I think.
Veil.
That
Okay.
yeah.
So
If anything,
can
if anything
uh,
turns
yeah,
up where the veil is too thin, then you can. Everyone
Yes.
can, of course.
yeah.
Even if
Obviously,
it's-
there are. I rely as a GM on feedback.
Yeah.
If I'm going in a direction you don't like, please God, tell me.
Yes. Will do.
Right. So that means that we're okay with the basic concept of paralysis and physical restraint, having narrowed that down to the thing we don't want. Fair enough. So next we get to police and police aggression. I don't know quite why we need police separately from police aggression. I can see, there are people who have an issue with police because there are environments where the police are a bad thing. But I personally feel that that's the sort of thing that you can fill in for yourself down at the bottom. The bit that is a more universal issue is the misuse of power aspect of it. And there I would personally have listed as misuse of power rather than police and police aggression, because that's the aspect that's actually a problem from my point of view. This one we have got a veil on already.
Okay.
So unless somebody needs to upgrade that, we're good with that one.
Okay. Now I could see someone who's experienced a lot of police harassment and targeting, having a conditioned response, basically to, I see a cop, my blood pressure.
Yeah.
I immediately go into freeze or flight mode, and that would make sense to me.
Maybe I'm just too optimistic and have rose-tinted glasses, but I tend to feel that is probably uncommon enough that it comes into the fill it in at the bottom rather than list it directly.
I feel like this is
maybe that
very
is
much.
just my rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very UK thing to say.
Yeah, it's still
I'd say that with love.
It's still shocking when police abuses happen here.
Yeah.
The Met is currently going through a certain period of reevaluation, and it is still making the headlines.
Exactly. Yes.
When it no longer makes the headlines, then we're really going to panic.
Does
that make sense?
That's basically what I meant. I did not mean to.
When it comes out and doesn't make the headlines, that's when you have to worry.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I meant, and thank you for clarifying, because if my initial statement came out as rude, then I do apologize.
This is one of those situations where US and UK are two very different places, and are socially and politically in very two different places. That's not saying you are wrong. That's individual you. There are elements going on over there that I'm. What? There are elements here where I'm going, what? But they're not necessarily the same ones. But no, it is worth mentioning because, of course, problems in one area are not the same as problems in another area, whether that is cultural, politically, national.
Yes.
And it's always worth being aware of this.
I was about to say that this actually opens up a big thing, which is that this list is like, I can see a lot of like more cultural to like my neck of the woods things like listed I can see like a lot of them like being differently listed. For example, like
Mhm.
as Fishy said, like misuse of power
Yeah.
would actually like I can actually see hospitals and doctors, for example, being
Oh
Mm,
like
yeah.
more
yeah.
culturally listed
Oh God.
on this list for like for example for
Mhm.
Romanian people.
Yeah.
Our
Orphanages.
Mhm.
we have
Yes.
had issues.
That's a
We have
polite way of
had
putting it.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. I
like
mean,
more than with like for oh I don't say more than with police, but it's a different kind of context because you
yeah.
know
Yeah.
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
cultures, and it's actually a pretty good thing to note because
Yeah.
you know
And of
Yeah.
course you had,
culture.
of course there was the fun and games. As the please note, I am British. I use sarcasm when talking about serious topics. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
so
Oh,
things
like
like
for example,
Ceausescu.
I can see people
Yes.
listing revolutions as a line or a veil
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
account of waves hands
Mhm.
for use of this recording. I am Romanian.
Yeah.
You know, for the benefit of the tape, I am
Yes.
Romanian. Like, if you want to see me rant about for like 30 minutes about why Hollywood portrayals of revolutions is stupid, just ask
Yeah.
me. I will answer at length.
Yeah. No, that's perfectly
One
reasonable.
issue with regard to revolutions, of course, is the fact that Hollywood is based in a country which is very proud of its revolutionary past, and therefore has a rather skewed view of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The
Um,
same issues from here in Britain look slightly different.
this
Yes.
actually is literally about my only issue with this set of safety tools. This is excellent. I am totally on board with it. But every now
But
and then I trip over and go, yeah, that's coming from an American perspective, isn't it?
and that is an issue. Yeah, but it is written by Americans, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, that totally
obviously
makes
they're
sense.
writing. It's write what you know, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. This is why I'm
The
glad
only
they've
way
got
that
the
you could get a
extras.
better list is
Yeah.
if you actually took time and had a big enough pool of contributors to be able to get a truly international
Yeah.
list, and that would require you'd basically need some sort of major international conference and to argue over every point to get
Yeah,
this is as good
exactly.
as we're going to get.
It's interesting because this is a very international group. I mean, when we get there, it's a mixture of we've got Romanian, we've got British, we've got the American in various different places, and it's an interesting mix because not everybody is going to respond to the same triggers and not everyone's going to respond to the same
Yeah,
topics in the same way. Like you say, Alexia,
they don't mean the same
revolution,
thing
no,
to everybody.
revolution to you is a very different meaning to a revolution to, say, someone from the US, which again is different to revolution in the UK, where, you know, I think the last one we had was the Civil War. Um, and we decided it was a bad idea and we wanted to have parties instead. Um, essentially. Oh, for goodness sake. Moliere. Just really, could you just take it out and, I don't know, have it shot?
I'm going to. I'm switching back to
I,
my old doc after the stream.
It's
See if that
probably a
helps.
good
I think
idea.
we do need to be pressing on.
Sorry.
Because we want to get more than I think. Yeah, I'd like to at least touch on the ship and character creation during this stream.
So, yes, we may
Before
have to
possible.
have 2 session zeros. I apologise for
We
this.
may have to have
On the other
session
hand,
0.
this is a narrative game, and if you wanted people contributing, I think you're
Mhm.
fairly clear that yes, people are going to contribute.
Oh yes.
Okay. Pregnancy
Right.
issues.
So where have we got to? The next thing is yes, pregnancy, miscarriage, or abortion. We already have a veil over that one, so unless anybody needs that to be bumped up to a line, we can carry past. The
Unless
same
people
goes
want to
for the
split
next.
that out into the separate topics.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to, I mean, because it's a very broad group there. I'm assuming this is why I just described it, pregnancy issues when I typed it into
Yeah.
to the chat. I'm assuming that this is not a veil that we don't want to actually have to deal with the idea that somebody might be pregnant. I'm assuming there is
people
not.
come from? Yes.
ban on pregnant NPCs, for example, but that issues arising from that
Okay.
are going to be veiled.
Okay.
And then we get to self-harm is the next one. Again, we already are veiled on self-harm. That is obviously a very serious issue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting one from my point of view. I myself have never engaged in self-harming tactics, but I've known people who have. And it's one of those things where I absolutely understand why we would put a veil or a line on this one, but at the same time, as a sometime advocate on mental health issues, I don't like hiding mental health issues and pretending they don't exist.
Yes.
So for me, I would leave this open, but I would also be very considerate as to how I addressed it, as with most mental health issues. So that is veiled already, though, and I think we're probably fine with leaving that veiled.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So, severe weather. Now, again, this is something that, as a Brit, from our point of view, it's a little bit, well, why is this in the list? But but I understand, however, there are places in the world where, severe weather and natural disasters are a major problem, and it could seriously be an issue for somebody who has lived through such things. Whether it be tsunamis, hurricanes, whatever, these things are, they can seriously screw people's lives up. So it's understandable that it's there. It just seems slightly odd from a British viewpoint, because we don't really get that. The worst we get is a bit of a flood and you need to buy some new furniture.
Yes.
Well, yeah, or someone, during a heat wave, if your elderly relatives had suffered through that, then I could see saying let's
I suppose in modern Britain, actually, the freezing to death and severe weather issues are becoming more appropriate, because over the last couple of years, it is becoming more and more of an issue as to keeping warm in winter.
Yes.
I, however, would call that less of a veil and more of a bloody use it, because
again, something to be used to highlight the issues.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's one of the things that I would say about lines and veils and this checklist. Ideally, for me, I may actually recreate this checklist at some point, maybe with a few tweaks to bits of it. I would like to see this checklist with a fourth option, where you have line, absolutely no, veil, but off camera, please. Yeah, okay, I'm fine with it. And can we address this issue? I think it would be nice to have a checklist like this when setting up a game, where you can actually address the idea that there might be some issues people actively want to address. That may well be something that I put together when I'm doing the Boundaries and Bar Guests game system. I might try and include one in that, because that, for those who haven't already heard me whittering about it, that is a game system that I'm putting together based on my own obsession system, which is designed for self-help for people with primarily depression, but mental health issues generally. So this is the kind of thing that becomes useful there. It would be certainly a tool, I think, that might be useful for those who are using tabletop role-playing games as therapy, which is becoming a far bigger deal these days, and hopefully will continue. And it'll be nice when we actually get some proper research done on it and some actual real results. So anyway, we didn't veil natural disasters, did we?
No, we didn't.
No, not natural disasters, severe weather rather, natural disasters,
sorry.
just ages ago. Okay, so the next one, we've got a line already on sexual assault. That is...
Thank you.
Yeah, that's just not a thing that has ever happened in one of my games, nor is it ever going to. And apparently I was staring directly at the line above when I typed that, and it became sexual weather. So Let's
It's
just put that in
raining
correctly.
men. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
It's raining.
Amen. Sorry.
No, that's fair enough. No, I don't know if anybody else has drawn it, and I'm not asking. But yeah, sexual assault is not a thing.
Yeah.
Sexual assault is already line under that one. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we get to starvation. Do we have any issues on starvation?
If there are children starving, I would like a veil, perhaps.
I would certainly say that comes under harm to children, which
Okay,
we already
thank
have
you.
a line on.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there's crossover there, and I will obviously go with the most in any situation where more than one category applies. I will go with the most extreme category.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which was
That
thank
is
you.
the most extreme response, veil or line.
Yes.
So next, that brings us to terrorism. Now, that one again is a contentious issue. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. It has been said, but I personally think that's bollocks. Because I think the moment you step into using terror, you cease to be a freedom fighter, you become a terrorist. But that's my personal opinion. Do we want a line or a veil on terrorism?
Personally, I'm okay with it, but I bow to whatever anyone else feels.
It's a thing. I'm okay with it
Yeah.
existing. I'm okay with it being used.
Okay.
Yeah.
People will use
Given
it.
that this is a player-driven game, to be honest, it's not likely to pitch up unless
Yes.
the group indicates that they would quite like to deal with a story involving terrorism.
Yeah.
That is,
Yeah. Yeah, I would.
the lines and veils are probably less important in this game than in a lot of others because of its player-driven nature.
Yeah.
But it's still good to actually have this stuff sorted out.
I think I am perfectly happy with bad guy terrorists.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Terroristic antagonists. So yeah.
Yeah, I would not endorse us using those tactics. But
did we want to add an additional line on here then for perhaps promotion of terrorism?
Yes.
To give a way to phrase it.
Glorification of terrorism.
Glorification
that's
is
a good
one.
Yes.
That one, yeah, I would say please no.
None of us want
Definitely.
to be doing that, so we will just put a line on there straight away.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is bringing us to torture. We have a veil on torture at the moment. It will not happen on camera, but it could be happening in the world out there. Do we want a line under it?
I'm fine with a veil.
I'm good with a veil.
Yeah.
Okay.
How are you on that, Alexi?
Oh, I'm also okay with the veil. I'm okay with the veil on I'm in green. I don't care.
Okay.
Okay, so we can do season 124 then. We're okay because we've got terrorism allowed and we've got torture under a veil, so we can get Jack Bauer onto the game. It's all good.
Yeah.
Right, next we move to thirst. This is another one of those things. It's a very personal issue for most people. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but obviously there could be somebody whose personal experience and some feel otherwise.
I'm all right with it. Personally.
Same.
I know you've said you're agreeing with everything, Lexi, but I am expecting you to tap in or speak up.
Yeah.
If
I mean, as Lexi has already said.
Oh yeah.
Lexi's already said, one of the things with this list is it's great because it reminds you of stuff that you might not have. Someone says, "Oh, you have a problem with anything," and your mind immediately goes blank, and you think no. But then when you're presented with a list, there might be something that pops.
Like for example, the one thing that I actually am uncomfortable with is eye trauma, and I always forget about it because it's me. Of course I forget about it. And then I see this list and I heard you Fishy going eyes, and I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, that's right. I'm uncomfortable with that.
Yeah. Sorry, but I didn't mean to say
Exactly.
I expect you to. I apologise. That
Oh.
sounded ever so authoritarian.
Well,
Don't
we knew what you
don't
meant.
worry.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
You are among friends.
Oh, all right then.
Right, so we have now reached the bottom of the list. We've got space for some additional topics if there's anything that hasn't been covered by any of these categories that somebody wants to add in. Otherwise, we are done with that. And then, again, unless somebody's going to suggest something now, I think now we have a decision to make. Now, in my original plan for the session,
Yeah, this has gone well.
I had got a break scheduled here. I think, however, it is now 10 to 10. I'm not working tomorrow. I'm absolutely fine. But what do people want to do? Do we want to call that break a good place to end this session and do a second session 0 for the rest of it? Or do we want to try and push past to some ship and character creation?
We still have, yeah, as you say, we still have ship and character creation. Personally, I think that is an excellent second session.
Yes.
We've gone through the background, the mechanics now. I would prefer to go with a session, as Lexi says, 0.5, because I'm not doing great.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
If that's what. Sorry for context. I've not been well for the last week or so.
So the only thing I've got left in the safety tools portion of my, or lines and veils portion of my session plan now then is use in the campaign. Now to be honest, we've pretty much covered that in the discussion going through getting this sorted out. But how this is
Of all the times for Fish's mic to go mental.
Yeah.
Oh, mental. You know what I mean? Sorry.
Yeah.
Just wore
It's.
off.
Oh, jeez.
That was interesting.
So the way that safety tools are going to be used in this campaign, as I've already said, I've gone through how we're using the tools in Fantasy Grounds, which is they're used firstly to give an indication that somebody's getting uncomfortable with the direction that the scene is going, and if it's obvious to me where that discomfort is likely to be coming from, then that's all that needs to be done. It's just flag that up using the halt, and I'll steer away from it. Otherwise, I put a private message to back it up, to tell me what the issue is. Will let me move on with that. We can also use the stop button on halt, either to stop things completely, in which case then we discuss as a group how we want to deal with it, whether we're going to rewind and start a scene again, just close it and move on, or try and retcon it in some way, or indeed the stop button can be used just because somebody can't get a word in edgeways and needs to say what they want to do in a scene. We can use it that way. The list can be used by any and all of us. This is important. I'm saving this list on in Dropbox. So Drup's already got access to it by the shared Dropbox, but I'm also going to post this PDF list to the Discord channel where everyone can get at it for two reasons. One, because that's a matter of accountability. Then if I cross a line that should be a line or fail to veil something, you've got access to it to say, hang on, you don't need to be sitting there going, I thought we'd veiled that, did we not veil that? You can look and you can see, and you can come back and say, oi, you, look what you've done. And secondly,
I was thinking polite cough.
Secondly, this is a player-driven game. So this list does not just apply to me. It's not just things that I'm not going to put into the game, or I'm going to be careful to veil in the game. Also, when players are adding elements to the game themselves through the conversation or through adding hooks or whatever, take the lists into account. Make sure that you are considering how other people feel about this. It is important to use that, because this being such a player-driven game, this list applies just as much to you as it does to the Firefly.
Yes.
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, it never hurts to have additional reference material.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I am very fond of that.
Yeah, correct. So,
So the next stream that we do for this, the session 0.5, the things we still have to cover, doing it slightly backwards according to the way the rulebook has got it. I want to do the ship next. I've got it down as ship and crew because that's where we will define what ship we have got, and not defining the specific individual crew members, but the crew as a whole. What kind of a crew is it?
yeah,
Oh,
fish sound.
slideshow. Oh no.
I am going to
dear.
take the Wi-Fi connection out, take it behind the woodshed,
Yes.
It's not
shoot it.
not the Wi-Fi.
Oh no,
Oh.
I
Lazarus.
don't know what it is. It's not the Wi-Fi. So.
Okay.
I'm so. Oh no! I've transmitted whatever is affecting my tech to you. Oh no!
It's been playing me up since I put the system back together in the new place. So I think I'm gonna have to strip it down and give it some serious maintenance and see what comes out.
Isn't that under a veil?
That's probably under a veil, yeah.
Yes.
So yeah,
Fade
we've got the
black.
ship and crew
Yes.
to cover, and then we've got the specific characters to be dealt with, and then after that, the last thing is a section on hooks and world building. I've already got a couple of hooks of my own. I've got a hook from one of my players already. During the discussion of what the world is going to be like and creating the characters, hooks will probably suggest themselves. And that's great because that's what I want. The game is built on hooks. Rather than scenarios, you'll have hooks. I think that sounds interesting. I'll go and investigate that. We'll also be covering building up the reach. I'm just going to share this map. It's already shared, in fact, but if I hit the share button now, then it should actually appear on Drut's screen, which means it will appear
green. On much
screen
green.
theoretically. Yes, so as you can see, this is a map of a portion of Wildsea, a world covered entirely in trees. It's not subtle.
Okay.
What the hexes mean? They mean trees. What kind of trees? We don't know.
What type of trees do you have?
Yeah,
I'm just looking at section 0501 in the top left and thinking, what the hell went wrong there that's a void?
Right, yeah, that's one of the smaller voids. I've got two small voids like that, and then I've got three larger ones. The reason for these, the real world metagame reason for these, is I wanted them.
Never a bad
the
reason.
in-game reason for these, who knows? Maybe it's something that we will investigate during the game. If it's something that appeals to your crew, maybe it's not. That's entirely up to you. This is a player-driven game. Yeah. But we've got some voids in this reach, and we've also got some mountain space in this reach. And I've placed a few points of interest to start with. We've got 4 settlements on there at the moment. No, 5 settlements. No, 6 settlements. No one expects the Spanish settlement building.
Exactly where my mind went, yes.
It took us a while, but we got to the Monty Python reference eventually.
Where's the comfy chair? Yeah, we need a Monty Python couch.
So more will be added as the game goes on. But this is a living document. It's entirely possible for things like these settlements to disappear over the course of play. They might be built on spits, which are reabsorbed, sink back into the Wildsea, back into the Thrash. New things can be found and added to the map. So as the campaign progresses, I expect this map to change as we explore things and find things. But I wanted a nice big area for us to mess with, and this is a nice big area. Nice big area for us to mess with, so that you don't feel particularly bounded or constrained, that you can do what you like, and we've got a big area to work with. But I also didn't want to detail it because that defeats the point of player driven. So while we're going world building, we will be determining some more of this.
How big are the hexes? You may have said it, my brain just refused.
I believe I made the hexes 50 miles across, but I will check in case I make them 50 kilometers across. But they are big.
Okay. No, that's cool.
It's a big area.
In this big area, Yes, that makes the voids rather more interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah, these voids are huge. Yeah, these are 50-kilometer hectares. I went
Right.
metric. So these voids are big. The sort of the gaps where there isn't enough tree coverage to sail your ship across are a feature of the Wildsea. I decided to go big on those,
Mm.
to have some large areas of that, which deserve some kind of explanation as to why they are there. But that explanation doesn't exist at the moment and will only exist if one is created and discovered in game.
Now I want someone to make Fish a scarf with that pattern.
If I could find that color yarn, then I could do that. It would have to be boucle, though.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got that bubbly texture. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh dear.
Sorry.
That's all right. Fish, your
Looked ahead a bit to what session 0.5 is going to be. I am now done with this session.
Okay.
Over to you.
You're done. That's
Done
it.
with our
I'm out,
nonsense.
dude. Okay, so thank you very much. As a big shocker, that I had a feeling when I saw the Streamlabs structure, I thought we were going to be pushing the issue to get it done with talkative people. However, I'm glad we went into.
I was concerned about
the.
I was concerned about the lines and veils taking a lot
Yeah.
of time, and that is indeed where a lot of the time was
Yeah.
eaten up. So,
However, I am glad that we were able to go into it in detail because I think that's a valuable
Yes.
thing, and it doesn't necessarily get done in detail as often as it could do, because by its very nature, a lot of the time this is done secretly. Or if not
yeah,
so I think where we are
Yeah.
happy having it open and discussed,
It's-
I think it's
yeah,
valuable.
it's good to
be able
get it
raise
out
those
into the
topics.
open. And
Agreed.
Yeah. So, thank you very much. We will be setting up a second session 0, so it is session 0.5.
I do want to quickly apologise for disappearing into the darkness. I forgot to turn the light on in here, and I was going to turn it on when we got to the break, and we didn't get to the break.
Yes, sorry about that. So, we will sort out a time and date and tweet out about it, but it will again be on this channel and it will be on the Thursday. It may be next Thursday. We will have to have a discussion about that, depending on people's availability. So, thank you very much indeed. You can indeed support, as Molly has just put up, support the channel on Ko-fi. I can accept subscriptions, but frankly it costs you less and I get more money if it goes through Ko-fi, because no share goes to Twitch Amazon. If however you happen to have Amazon Prime, then you get a free Twitch subscription each month. I'm just saying. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this is useful, and I hope if you're watching on the VOD that you find this useful. What I would like to do is break this down ideally by section, so or at least bookmark it so people can jump to specific sections.
That's a good idea.
When this goes up on YouTube, and we will take it from there. So yes, next session will be world design, ship design, and character creation.
People design.
People design. Yes, I was trying to think of another design, and the word people completely eluded me. Well done, Drat. Clearly firing on all thrusters. So, thank you very much indeed, and we will see you. When am I going to be on stream? I'm next going to be on stream on Saturday. On hint_plays, where we will be playing Gaia Complex with a Chrono Magistrate and other people.
I may be on stream tomorrow.
Yay!
But I haven't decided yet.
Oh, timing!
I need to start streaming again.
Who casts
so
Summon?
I might try and get a stream in.
Somebody just cast Summon Bind Chrono Magistrate, and all of a sudden, ting!
He's just that
No,
good.
they can't cast Summon Bind Chrono Magistrate. They can only cast Summon Chrono Magistrate because it's on camera and there's a veil over the bind part.
Good point. So, yes. So Fish may be streaming tomorrow. fingers crossed for that.
Oh, excellent.
Watch his channel or keep an eye out on his Twitch, Fish Not Fish. Spelling in chat.
Okay.
If somebody feels, I think it's shout for me, isn't it? There we go.
I can never remember.
Oh, I can never remember.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Really?
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, fine.
Techie. I am going to add. Okay. Remind me when I'm next editing Techie's commands.
There we go. So you found
Yeah.
it. I was just making a comment because you can get at it, of course, if you're watching on
Yes.
Twitch. You can just click on my name to go to my channel. So
Yeah.
I thought I'd just make a comment.
Absolutely.
But you got it working.
So yes, you can see him tomorrow, hopefully. Also available on Twitter under the same username as am I, under Druttercup. And feel free to chuck a follow in our direction. If you're not already following the channel, feel free to follow us. That would be nice. I am one person away from 400. One, damn it. One person away from cute pastel-coloured cat cafes. Make me suffer. So, thank you very
Doing the
much.
best I can.
Yep. So, thank you very much, and we will see you in session 0.5 and in the upcoming streams. So, have a good one. Take care of yourselves, and bye-bye.
Bye.
And play games.
Play games,
Oh.
yes. Play more games.
Nice.
ASMR, play more
Always.
games. Later.